On Saturday, I went with a friend of mine to go see the new It movie. Let me tell you, I wasn't disappointed. The cast was incredible. I really felt something for the children and could see myself in them, and when you love the characters in a horror movie, the fear becomes all that more impactful, more real. Intense, that's how I would describe this movie. One minute you're being grossed out by a pharmacist, and the next you're watching a full-on battle between the kids and this powerful creature. I left that movie with a pain in my arm because I spent a large portion of it with my muscles clenched. This movie jumps that emotional, physical barrier in a way I haven't seen many movies do recently. The Pennywise in this adaptation, portrayed by actor Bill Skarsgard, really brought it all to the table. From training with a contortionist to using a hidden talent to ramp up the tension, you can really tell that there was a lot of work put into making this Pennywise feel dangerous. In fact, one of the best parts of the movie is the fact that you will never find a scene where Pennywise isn't looking directly at the audience. Skarsgård is able to look in two different directions at once, so one eye is always looking directly at you, the audience. It's unsettling, it's not human, and I think that's where the scares come from. Coming off of this movie being more scared of the portrayal of Pennywise than it was of the fact that it was a clown got me thinking. Are clowns actually scary, or is it something else? Do people often say that they're scared of clowns when in reality they're scared of something deeper? Is the fear of clowns more of a societal construct? Is coulrophobia, or fear of clowns, a real thing? Currently, coulrophobia isn't listed in the World Health Organization's ICD-10 or in the American Psychiatric Association's categorization of disorders. While this doesn't mean that it isn't a thing, it does mean that it isn't considered to be a mental disorder by most professionals. However, there have been several studies conducted with some interesting results. A 2016 study performed by a cognitive behavioral psychotherapist and an assistant professor in general psychology showed an overall positive reaction to clowns used in healthcare settings. However, the nurses showed an increase in anxiety when working with the clowns. Another study performed in 2013 showed similar results for preoperative children before minor surgery. Sadly, I couldn't get access to the full report, so I couldn't determine if the nurses had the same reaction. This tells me a few things. It tells me that so far there is no real evidence for coulrophobia, and that the fear that many people are feeling might be coming from somewhere else. But what could that be? Before I went looking for expert opinions, I tried to think of why people would be scared of clowns. Most of what I'm about to say is my opinion, but you'll see later that I'm not alone. My first thought was that the white makeup makes them look like a sick or dead person. This also compounds with the dark makeup around the eyes, which is another sign of exhaustion or sickness. However, this doesn't always correlate with all clown designs, and I wasn't happy with that, so I set those aside and took another look at the clown and what could make them so spooky. I found that there's kind of a discord between what a clown looks like and what we know they are. Clowns are intentionally designed to look like colorful children's toys, but we all know they're human. Or, for the case of horror clowns, we know they aren't a friendly toy, but instead something incredibly dangerous. This discrepancy causes a powerful distrust because their emotions and thoughts are so hard to read. Couple this with their over-the-top personalities and their forced friendliness to children, and you're left with something you can't quite pin down. This ambiguity is, in my opinion, the root of the fear many people struggle with. Dr. Melanie Phelps, a private psychologist, once stated, quote, "Clowns have unnatural, large, exaggerated, and distorted features, and therefore don't match the safe, friendly human pattern we have created in our minds. We know that clown faces are brightly colored, with stark contrasts. For example, wide bright red lips against a very white background, with exaggerated smiles, or expressions which are fixed and do not change with interaction. This triggers an unsafe does not match alert in our primal brains, which indicates this type of face is unknown, not recognized, possibly unsafe, possibly a threat, and we cannot read the facial expression correctly as it doesn't match the actions or words." End quote. This is part of the reason that creepypasta characters like Jeff the Killer and Slender Man have been so successful. I'm serious. Take a picture of Jeff the Killer and put it next to a clown's picture, and you'll notice some very interesting similarities. These kind of designs are not quite human, and this messes with our ideas of safety. But I also think there's more to it. I think that perhaps the development of modern culture has had a negative impact on our perception of clowns. Movies like 1990's It and Poltergeist implanted this idea that clowns were something to be feared. Murderers like John Wayne Gacy, who was a clown entertainer while killing more than 35 young men in his free time in the 1970s, didn't help the perception of clowns. Then there's Jean-Gaspard Debarau, a clown who, in the 1800s, killed a young child with one hit of his cane because the boy was simply very rude. And it isn't just things from the past. In 2016, the world was hit by a wave of clown sightings that were downright malevolent. Some of these clown sightings resulted in injuries, both clown and non-clown alike. Over time, and because of these well-known portrayals of clowns, I believe that society at large has slowly shifted from being accepting of clowns to starting with a fearful opinion of them. This isn't helped by the fact that clown humor is often outdated and not considered as funny. Instead, it has shifted to weird and unsettling. Still, there are many clowns out there just wanting to spread happiness, but the direction society is headed, there may not be room for clowns beyond their portrayal in horror, and that is incredibly sad to me. I still wasn't satisfied, so on my Twitter I asked people if they were actually scared of clowns, and here's the results. Not only was there a vast majority who weren't scared of clowns, there was also a pretty hefty amount of people who just weren't sure. On top of that, a lot of the people who said yes chimed in with many opinions that mirrored my findings. DJ X Knight said clowns used to scare them because they seemed too happy all the time, and that made them hard to trust. At Wi-Fi Failure said that they aren't sure because it really depends on the context. And at Silent Raindrop says that it's the face paint that makes her uncomfortable. This almost overwhelming agreement of my findings was more than enough for me to consider my curiosity sated. It appears that it's not really the clown they're scared of, but the unknown that the clown represents. The 2017 It movie was a blast, and I recommend it to anyone looking for a good character-driven horror film. You won't be disappointed. I wasn't. I loved it. The sound design, character development, and atmosphere were all on point, and don't get me started about the set design, because I loved that final confrontation set. Spectacular. I hope that this look into clowns was fun, and I'll see you next week with another thing that I look at on a whim. See ya.